Okay, I believe we're live now.
We are.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Delegate Charlotte Crutchfield, and I am the chair of the Education, Elections, and Housing Committee for the Montgomery County delegation, which serves in the Maryland General Assembly. And we are going to have a meeting today to discuss 4 bills. We've already had bill hearings on all 4 bills, and now it is time for us to discuss and possibly vote on some of the bills. So we will start out with MC 1-24, which is sponsored by our own Delegate Kaufman, who also serves on the committee. And Delegate Kaufman, would you like to just give a really brief summary of what this bill does?
Yes. This is a bill that we've passed many times before, and it is only enabling legislation, meaning that Montgomery County doesn't have to do it if they do not wish to, but I do have the support of the county executive and county council on this. And it would just allow ranked choice or approval voting for a variety of offices, including county executive, county council, school board, sheriff. I'm not going to go through all of those different local offices because you asked for brief, but it just I think it it enhances democracy. It's already done in many states and localities, and I urge the delegation to I urge this committee to once again push for its approval, vote for its approval rather.
Thank you very much, Delegate Kaufman. Are there any questions for the bill sponsor or just generally regarding this particular bill? All right, I see Delegate Cullison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. I just have a quick question, Delegate Kaufman. Is the bill in the same posture as it was last year when we passed it?
I was on mute. Yes, can you hear me now, Delegate?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
The effective date is obviously different, but it's in the same posture of the bill that we passed unanimously in for the 2023 session.
Great. Thank you
We
very
passed it again in 2019, 2021. We've done it a bunch of times.
much. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding this particular bill? Any other discussion points? All right. I don't see any hands up. So what I'm going to do is call for a motion for
Madam
a
Chair?
vote. Yes,
I'd like to move the bill favorable.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. So we have a first and we have a second. And so we will now call the question, which is to vote for the bill in its current state and vote it out of this subcommittee and onto the general committee of the delegation. So we have to stay on camera to vote, and we will go ahead. And what I will do is I guess what I could do also is, first of all, I would like to maybe have you to raise your hands, but I think I'm going to do a roll call vote because that may be a little bit easier to do. So let's go ahead with the roll call vote. All right. And I'm going to start with Delegate Charkodian.
Aye.
All right. Delegate Cullison.
Aye.
Delegate Shetty.
Aye.
Delegate Vogel.
Aye.
Delegate Kaufman.
Aye.
Delegate Ziegler.
Aye.
And myself also an aye. All right, that sounds like that has passed unanimously. Okay, we can go on to our next bill, which is MC. Sorry. I got a little excited about us passing that one. MC 3-24, which is to deal with alterations of HOC. It really deals with repealing a requirement to actually publish the summary of the Montgomery Commission's annual financial report in certain newspapers, et cetera. So it's to really bring things online with current ways in which we publish things, which is usually online, et cetera, and not actually doing a publication in a newspaper. So let me ask you this, the bill sponsor is not here, but I'm hoping that if you have questions, maybe I can help answer them, or I don't believe there's anybody else here. But do you have any questions regarding this particular bill?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm the delegates.
Oh, sorry, I did not see you. Yes, go
Any
ahead, Matt.
questions?
Sorry.
You gave a good summary of the bill, just removes a couple of burdensome requirements placed on HOC that aren't placed on other affordable housing in the county. Happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee members?
Move support, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. And do I have a second?
Second, Aaron.
All right, great. And so I'm going to call the question, which is to vote on this particular bill. I'm going to call roll call and make sure everybody's still on camera. So let's go ahead and move forward. So Delegate Tarkodian,
Yes.
Delegate Cullison,
Yes.
Delegate Kaufman,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Vogel,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. I think, again, we've got a unanimous vote here. Okay, 2 for 2. That's not bad. All right. So the next bill up is also another bill that is sponsored by Delegate Palovich Carr, and that is MC 5-24. And that is the Montgomery County Board of Education vacancy procedures. And Matt, would you go ahead and give us a real brief synopsis on that one?
Sure. So currently in state law, the vacancy procedures for the Montgomery County Board of Education outline that when there's a vacancy, the remaining members of the Board of Education simply appoint the successor. But understanding that, we're trying to move in the direction of having special elections for these elected positions. Delegate Polakovich Carr felt it's best to move forward with perhaps having special elections for when vacancies happen on the Board of Elections. And so you'll see in the bill that this would only apply to vacancies that occur in essentially the first year of a member's term. So there wouldn't be special elections for every single vacancy. And as you might be familiar, the Board of Education members all run in staggered terms. And so the bill outlines in detail sort of how the process would work for who the top vote getter, would be and what seat they would fill, and outlines the differences between at-large members and district members with respect to special elections for those vacancies. Happy to answer any questions about this bill.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Delegate Kaufman.
I just have a brief question. I'm a proud co-sponsor of the bill and will be voting for it, but has the Board of Education taken a position on it? Just because traditions are hard to break, so I'm just curious if they've taken a position yet.
They haven't decided to take a position on the bill. But Delegate Polakovich Carr has spoken with board members and generally don't have strong feelings in either direction.
Okay. Again, I'm going to support the bill. Thank you, Mr. Harrington.
And my apologies, Delegate Cullison, but I'm going to ask, there's 2 other folks on the call here that can also provide a little bit more information about the bill, and I'd like for them to go ahead and speak, and then I'll call on you, Delegate Cullison, after that, if you don't mind. And that is David Naiman and also Boris Brodkovich are here from the Board of Elections. And gentlemen, if you will go ahead.
Thank you, Delegate Crutchfield. Our Boris is really the expert on kind of the details of how the bill would work. My main purpose in being here is to tell the committee about a related issue for the Board of Elections, which is the timing of the start of the term of office for the Board of Education. As you may know, with the changes to the law for mail-in ballots, we are having many more mail-in ballots than we used to have. Before the pandemic, we were having in the neighborhood of 30 to 50,000 mail-in ballots. In 2020, we had 350,000. In in 2022, we had almost 120,000. Takes a long time to process all those ballots, and December 1 is the start of the school board term, and it's a pretty tight deadline. So what we were suggesting is that this bill could be a vehicle for a slight change in the start of the term of the Board of Education to buy us a few days. It would be, the suggestion that we had was to schedule it for the day after the charter date for when county officials take office in gubernatorial years. That date is the first Monday in December. So in other words, the county council and the county executive are sworn in on the first Monday in December. The proposal would be to have the Board of Education take office on the day after that. That would mean that the charter date would be essentially our deadline rather than the December 1st. And like I said, that depends on the year. It doesn't buy us a lot of days, but it buys us some. We meet roughly 20 days, full days to canvass ballots. We're hoping that the legislation that you all enacted to allow us to start counting ballots before the election will help, but it depends a lot on the voting behavior of Montgomery County voters and how much they vote earlier in the process versus closer to the election. A lot of voters, for various reasons, wait until late in the game in order to cast their mail-in ballots, and which limits the ability. Obviously, we can only count the ballots we received. So that was my main purpose in being here. Boris is actually very well versed in kind of the effect of this bill on our elections, and I'm something of a student of school board elections from decades ago. So if there are questions about things that have happened historically, I certainly can help. I will say Boris is our election director. He was appointed at the end of last year, and in a unanimous vote of the board, and we are thrilled to have him as our election director.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here, and pleasure to maybe provide some additional information. When it comes to the issue that David addressed right now, he spoke about the volume of mail-in ballots that Montgomery County is receiving in the last couple of elections, and the trends that we are seeing going forward. I'm not so much in favor of taking numbers from 2020 elections for granted, but looking at 2022 elections, the trajectory of number of people who vote by mail, which means number of canvas, that impacts number of canvas days for us, is going up. David said that we had almost 120,000 vote by mail ballots for the general elections in 2022. I can report that as of today, we have 85,000 people on the permanent mail-in ballot list, meaning that number is still expected to go up. We still don't know whether we have peaked when it comes to the total number of mail-in ballots requested. Another issue also that David touched upon very briefly is the pace in which those ballots are returned to Montgomery County Board of Elections. I cannot speculate what the reasons are, but our voters have a tendency to wait till the last moment. Just for example, on election day 2022, both primary and general, we received over 12,000 mail-in ballots on that particular day, only in drop boxes, even though drop boxes were operational for 6 weeks. And the third issue that impacts our canvassing days and therefore impacts the deadline for us to complete the process to enable swearing-in ceremony for the Board of Education is the number of web-delivered ballots. These ballots take time, take team effort, take labor to process, and our voters do like anything that's related to online option. Just for example, we had 24,000 requests for web delivery ballots for the last elections, and to put it in perspective, that number is almost equal to Anne Arundel, Howard County, and Baltimore City combined. And these are the ballots that also arrive late, which also postpone or impact our canvas as we go forward. Therefore, this proposal to consider changing the date for swearing in ceremony for board of education, as David said, buys us some time, gives us kind of a cushion so we can process and canvass all the ballots as they arrive. I apologize.
Let me just add one brief thing to what Boris said, which is that we call them web delivered ballots, but we really should call them print at home ballots, because folks may not realize that you have to print them out and then send them back to us or deposit them at Dropboxes. It's not, we do not have the ability to cast votes online. We have the ability to send ballots to people, they can print them. And then we have to hand duplicate the ballots that we receive by these print at home ballots onto ballot paper. And that's part of why they take a very long time, the process. Anyway, happy
Thank
to.
you.
Answer
Thank you
questions.
very much for explaining the process. Delegate Cullison, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank the sponsors of the bill, because I think it's really trying to get us to a place of democratic selection of the members of the board. I am a little confused though, because and please help me understand, because I think it's on the right track. But so there are board elections every 2 years. And you know, and they're staggered terms. But if you had a vacancy, my initial understanding of this legislation, and tell me if I'm wrong, was that if a candidate vacated, not a candidate, but a board member vacated early in their term, then the second highest vote getter would fill that, for that position, would fill that vacancy until the next possible election, which would automatically be within a 2-year period. It might be that district or that at-large seat would be out of sync, but it would be so it wouldn't require necessarily tell me why we have to have additional ballots set out if they are part of a normal election cycle, just different, just perhaps out of sync. Or that's, so if someone can help me understand the timeline, that would be helpful.
Matt, are you able to answer that? Or
with respect to this bill, and what what language is included in this bill, there's no need for additional ballots or additional elections or anything like that, because this would sync up with the elections that occur every 2 years in the county. Every congressional election, certain board members are up for re-election. And so there's no need for additional ballots. I think you might be confusing a little bit with what the Board of Elections here is proposing to add to this bill.
I think we may be the cause of the confusion. So let me see if I can try and I can't speak to what the bill says in terms of what happens when there's a vacancy. My understanding was that a vacancy early in the term would lead to a special election when we were already having other elections. So if it was a vacancy in roughly the first 2 years, but I think it's the first 2 years, but a little less than that, because there's the time before the filing deadline in order for that to happen, that would result in adding something to the ballot in the intervening election. So you have a 4-year term on the school board, somebody leaves in sometime in their 2nd year, but before the deadline that's in the bill, the next election, which is not the election that they normally would have been up for re-election, there would be a special to fill the last 2 years of their term. We were here today to talk about something that is not specific to the special election in that circumstance. What we're talking about this is just a bill that happens to be amending the same section of the code, because the code sets the date on which the school board takes office, and that date is December 1st. And what we're saying to you is that for us, when we have elections that are on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, and we have a hard deadline at December 1st where the school board wants to swear in its new members, that is a very tight deadline for us to get all the ballots counted. That's whether it's a special election, a regular election, or anything else.
If I may, Madam Chair, just
Yes.
so you're saying the complication would be someone was elected on, so the top voter, we know who the top voter is on the second Tuesday in November. And that person then drops out, then it would.
I'm not saying that.
No, okay.
I'm sorry. Let me just say again, I think we may be the reason for, you know, what Boris and I were describing is not related to the question of a vacancy.
Okay, all right.
What Boris and I were describing is related to every election.
I see.
Because what we're saying is that because of the vastly increased number of mail-in ballots, it's getting harder and harder. Remember, the schedule was set up when almost no one was voting by mail-in ballots, even before there was no excuse mail-in ballots. And it was a very small number of ballots, and they would start counting them on the Thursday after the election, and they'd finish counting them within a few days. Now, with the vast number of mail-in ballots, it takes that much longer for us to count them. This is no matter whether there's a special election or a regular election. And what we're saying is that it would be helpful to us, while you're amending the same section of the code, to consider a small change to the start of the Board of Education term to buy us a few more days.
I see. Okay, so it's not related to the bill necessarily, just you're trying to take advantage of the section of code we're in. Okay, I'm sorry for the confusion. Thank you very much.
No problem. No problem. Delegate Kaufman, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry for the second question, Madam Chair, but this is important. Mr. Harrington, and I hope to talk to the delegate herself, but I have a work commitment at 12:55. So do you know if Delegate Plakovich-Carr considers this a friendly amendment?
Guess what? She just popped on.
Yes, I do consider it a friendly amendment. Thank you for the question, Delegate Kaufman.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Delegate Draconian.
Madam Chair, I was just going to ask if we might hold the bill so that the chair of the delegate can work with Board of Elections and prepare an amendment for the next time we get together.
Yes, I think we can do that, definitely. Okay, all right, so we will table this bill. And thank you very much for attending, gentlemen from the Board of Elections.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So we will go on to our next bill, which will be our final bill up today, and that is MC 8-24, Montgomery County Restrictions on Use of Real Property Limitation. And I did see Delegate Moon here, and hopefully, Delegate Moon, you can give us a quick synopsis of what we're going to be doing with this bill.
Well, not voting today, Madam Chair.
We're just doing a quick synopsis and
okay, good. I wasn't sure what I was walking into because I'm prepared to talk, but not to have any action taken. We do anticipate needing additional amendments to this bill, so I guess I'll just leave you a little bit of info about what it does. The text is very, very broad. I want to be clear about that, and it's not ultimately going to be so broad. So the bill is modeled after an effort in Washington, D.C. that was that's actually going through hearings this month also, where the Ward 3 council member in D.C., and that's the Upper Northwest district, attempted to invalidate decades-old covenants and deed restrictions where some property owners in neighborhoods back in the 30s really took parcels of land and said these are only for single family, or there's other language, no apartments, no multifamily, no accessory units, things of that nature. So this kind of language is sprinkled across parcels of land all across the DMV. And if you were to Google Montgomery County mapping segregation, you'll actually find that the Park and Planning Department has undertaken an effort to specifically map parcels of land in the county where these restrictions still exist and are valid. So that's what this is attacking. The other factors to know are that in all of these instances, the underlying zoning is more liberal than what the HOA, former property owner, or neighborhood association has attempted to do. So we are basically attempting to say the local zoning trumps covenants put on deeds in HOA bylaws and covenants. So that's the bill in a nutshell. I will point out a couple areas where the DC law at the moment differs from what we are trying to do. And I will flag for you that I probably need to get an attorney general's opinion because we're impairing contracts and other sorts of legal documents in what we're attempting here. The DC law, as I read it, as introduced, restricts this effort to housing covenants that existed pre-1939. And so they were really trying to go after really old ones. And if you look at what they're doing specifically, there's
Hi,
a bunch
Elmer.
Hello.
I hope Mrs. Claus gives you a good time.
I do too, Delegate Kaufman.
Delegate, thank you. Go ahead.
So the DC law further narrows their effort by making it just apply to 1939, pre-1939 restrictions. So they didn't want to create a huge sweeping effect. I will tell you, it is going to be my goal not to put that date restriction on there unless it is absolutely necessary for constitutionality and concerns that might be raised by the Attorney General's office. And the reason for that is if you've been following recent discussions about creating by right accessory apartments in the county and some of the recent zoning changes that were discussed in Thrive, it would be my position that we don't want local property owners and neighborhood associations attempting in the future to get together and try and overrule the decisions of zoning that Montgomery County very recently made. So I would seek a prospective application. So that's, I'm going to attempt to get an amendment together that narrows this bill to HOA covenants and bylaws and deed restrictions, but to apply it broadly, both for existing restrictions and prospectively. And at the request of some other folks, they have wanted clarity that we are not attempting to overrule property restrictions that may be from a charitable bequest or other, dedicating land for a park. If someone does that, we won't mess with that, even though that stops the ability of housing being constructed there. So that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Delegate Moon. And I see Delegate Shetty has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Delegate Moon. Thank you for bringing this bill. I think it's a really important bill as we are looking at ways to address affordable housing challenges that we face in our county. I wanted to ask if you could share whether this bill applies the same across municipalities and the county, both municipalities that have zoning abilities and those that do not.
Yes, it would essentially enforce the local zone. If a municipality has zoning powers, it would also enforce the municipal zoning powers over a property owner that might try, or neighbor that might try and claim that those zonings don't apply to the property in question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let's see. I'm not seeing any. Yes, go ahead. Delegate Kaufman.
Yes, I just wanted to publicly apologize. That's the downside from working from home. I thought I was on mute, but I asked that we hold the bill for until the next time, Madam Chair. So the
Yes.
gentleman has time for amendments.
Yes, we can certainly do that. And also, I believe an Attorney General's opinion as well. Okay, thank you. All right, that really concludes our work session for today. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn, Madam Chair.
All right, great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday, and we will be back at some point with the rest of the bills. Thank you very